welcome to another podcast episode of Anthony's Animation Talk. Today we have a very special episode, so let's introduce our guests and we'll go from there. So my first guest is my partner in crime over on the YouTube channel, where he does try his best to make sure I don't make a fool of myself. So please welcome Austin Kelly.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited to crap on the films that I hate and praise the films that I love.
Oh yes, we're all going to enjoy that. Now, my next guest wrote a book called Sick Little Monkeys, the Unauthorized Ren and Stimpy Story, which changed the way I looked at my favorite animated series, one of my favorite animated series of all time, rather. So please welcome Thad Komorowski.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Right? You said it right. Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. Wow, yes, I was a bit worried. I'm thinking, I should have clarified this beforehand. I should have done that, but no.
Nope. You're one of the rare ones.
Hooray. I mean, my family are of Balkan descent and that, so there's a lot of skis and all that stuff around. So,
gotcha.
But today we're going to take a look at a topic that I have a bit of an interest in, and that's, going against the tide. So everyone's going to have that one film, or I guess many films, TV shows, and so on, that seemingly everyone else loves, and yet for whatever reason you just either indifferent to it or you just downright hate it. And then you got the opposite, where people will just crap on a film or a TV show or a game, but then you'll end up looking at it yourself and you go, "Oh, this is okay." Or you might think it's an undiscovered masterpiece. So today we're going to keep it animation related, and we're going to talk about what we hate that everyone seems to love, and what we love that everyone seems to hate. So we're looking to have some fun, boys.
Sure.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. All right, because I've been the one that's talking a lot, I'll probably go last. But should we start off with hate or love first, or should I flip a coin?
Flip a coin. It doesn't matter to me. I'm supposed to hate everything anyway.
Well, that's why I'm really interested to seeing what ones you picked there, Thad. So, all right, we'll start off with hate. I think we'll that way we can end on a positive note. I think that might be a good way to start. We can get the hate out of our system and bring the love back in, and we can go from there. So, I guess did you want to start, Thad?
Let's hear your guys' first. Everyone knows I hate everything, like I said.
All right. Austin, did you want to start? Because I've been talking the most.
Okay, sure. Film I hate first?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the one.
The one I hate, and, I think people kind of within the animation community would agree with me, but I think the general public wouldn't. The film that I hate is 1970's The Aristocats. There are a lot of reasons why I hate this thing. And I think it's no coincidence that this was the first film, I think it was one of the first, at least, released after Walt Disney himself had passed away.
Right, it was the second one. The Jungle Book was the first one that came out after he passed, but of course he was involved heavily with that. But Aristocats he did sign off on, so...
Okay, yeah, I got that wrong a little bit. But anyway, I really don't like this thing for a lot of reasons, but I just want to say there's a lot of sloppy design work in this thing. Like, some of the cats look like some of the guys from the Jungle Book. There were a lot of examples that I found, but, it was just, there was a lot of sloppy reuse in that department. And there was also a lot of, reused animation, which I wasn't really a fan of either. And I think it was largely in part of, I think it was something that the director, Wooly Reitherman, I think I'm pronouncing that properly.
Mm-hmm. Reitherman.
Wooly Reitherman, he didn't seem to put a lot of passion into this film. A few years after The Aristocats came out, he gave a talk in New York, and multiple people had asked him why the Disney films weren't as good as they used to be. And all he responded was, "They make money." He was infamously known for this reuse of animation, and it wasn't because it was cheaper, but it was just that it would assure that it would be good work, and he didn't have to rely on his new crew to do it well. And he's essentially taking the easy route, and he's not making any sort of risk in his filmmaking. And as a filmmaker myself, this really pisses me off. I think the majority of my gripes that have to do with this movie have to do with it as a film in terms of structure and animation quality. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I just want to say that Milt Kahl, I think, really didn't like Wooly either, and the reuse of the older animation. In an interview with Mike Barrier, he said, quote, "I can't cope with this man. I absolutely can't cope with him. It breaks my heart to see animation from Snow White reused in The Rescuers." And it's kind of odd since they were both one of the 9 old men, and it makes me wonder what Milt thought of Wooly as an animator. And I also want to
Yeah.
say that the crappy Disney restoration job thing, chock full of grain removal and DVNR, really doesn't help my opinion on it. And I also wanted to say that the line work on this film is really bad, and I'm not really that much of a Disney fan. Like, do you guys know why? I think it had something to do with like Xeroxing cells.
Yeah, it's Xerox. Yeah,
Yeah,
they Xerox the
Yeah.
cells.
it was probably a combination of the DVNR and the Xeroxing, but
Well, they got rid of a lot of the pencil line work and the restorations of the Xerox films. One was really one which I think is worse than the Aristocats, Sword in the Stone. The first version that they put out in HD and on Blu-ray, it's pretty legendary for how bad it looks. And
Yeah.
well, no, but the version on Disney Plus is one that they did in response to that, and it looks okay.
Oh.
It looks all right. But I don't feel like watching Sword in the Stone again to make that decision. So, you know.
yeah. I just want to quickly wrap up, everything I've said. All in all, I can look at this movie and I can just see a pathetic pile of film shoved together in 75 minutes. And despite the talented people that actually contributed it, including something I found interesting, ex-Art Davis animator, Chuck Jones animator as well, Basil Vidovich on layout, The Aristocats is a failure of a film that suffers from a lazy director and some crappy design and a whole lot of other things.
Well, it's also a ripoff of a famous studios cartoon, Kitty Cornered, right down to the butler trying to murder a kitten for the inheritance.
I mean, I've never
It's
seen
the
it. I was
same.
about to say, what I found interesting was that 8 years before, there was another feature-length movie about cats in France. Like, I mean, I've never seen that, but did it have any influence on this final film? Any of you guys?
I wouldn't say so, and it's not worth watching either.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would say with Aristocats, I mean, it's a childhood favorite. When VHS tapes were kind of new-ish, well, at least here in Australia anyway, Aristocats was one of the tapes that I got. And I know you're probably going to think, well, my parents must easily like torturing me, but, kids film, so it's okay. My kids do like it, and I know you're probably going to think I'm torturing them, but no, they like cats, so. But watching it as an adult, though, I can definitely see a lot of the problems with it. The biggest problem for me is the pacing. I think that was just isn't paced very well. I do like the music, especially Chevalier's song in the beginning. I do like that, and some of the voice work's pretty good and all that. But it is one of the more, I suppose, forgettable ones. But not in Japan. I'll let you know a fun little fact, because I'm a frequent to Japan, and Marie, that little girl cat,
Yeah.
she is everywhere.
well, the
Everywhere.
Japanese like small, cute things, and that's
They do?
get you. You get that.
Absolutely. But we have someone that's popped in right now, and he's someone that I've wanted to have on the channel for a long time. I've enjoyed his work on YouTube for the longest time, especially his commentary series, which he did before my series. So everyone, welcome the self-appointed Looney Tunes critic himself, Trevor Thompson.
Howdy.
Hey. I like that there was a very, very lukewarm response there. Lukewarm, Leia warm, Vader warm. Vader's very warm.
I'll fix it in post.
That's the George Lucas credo right there.
Yes. Oh, it will be. But Trev, just to get you up to speed as you've popped in, so we're going to start off with the films that we don't like or hate, that other people seem to love, and then we'll do vice versa. So we're going to start on a negative and we'll end on a positive, get the good vibes in. as you've heard, Austin has gone through his one, which is the Aristocats. I mean, what are your thoughts on that one?
I have to admit, well, I mean, the movie itself or Austin's take on it, because I signed on and I heard maybe 5 seconds, and then there was a real audio kerfuffle, and then I had to get back on, and then right when I came on, you introduced me, so I didn't hear much of what Austin had to say.
Sure, but maybe the movie.
But I disagree entirely.
There you go.
He's wrong, and yes, no, I don't. The Aristocats. I mean, I don't think I've seen it. If I have seen it, it was a long time ago. I heard you guys talking about the xerography process, though.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's the one thing that's weird about that is that people think that it actually stopped, but it really didn't. They think, oh well, once they did Little Mermaid and all these other things, it didn't stop. They just got more sophisticated at coloring the lines, and the cleanup was better. That is apparently drinking while we're doing this, because it's
yes.
Attaboy, here's to you. Cheers.
Of course, but yeah, because it eventually evolved into like the caps system somewhat that they used in the Renaissance films and stuff like that, and then it was discarded entirely with I think Home and Range. But all right, so we've gone through Austin's hate choice. So who wants to go next with their hate choice?
But I hate everything. You know that.
Yeah, as you said. I guess Trevor, since you're late, you want to give us your thoughts on the one you hate?
Oh, so because I'm late, okay, that's how I'm punished because I'm late.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I don't mind. Yeah, the one that I picked that I hate that everybody loves is Fantasia. So my main problem with Fantasia is this. Now, I want to start by telling a teensy weensy story that kind of plays into this. If you guys know my videos, you probably know my friend Sean. He's my video wrangler guy. He's responsible for a lot of the good copies of the cartoons that I have. And we did some commentaries together. We grew up in Sarasota, Florida, and we fancied ourselves filmmakers. We made a film, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a filmmaker, I guess. But the point is, we were writing scripts from day one. There were two characters, much like us, that were movie nuts in this one script that we wrote. And when they were looking for a movie that they wanted to watch, I forget if it was Casablanca or Citizen Kane, but it was some really great, time-honored, beloved movie. And the guy goes, "Come on, man, Citizen Kane." I'm like, "No, come on, Citizen Kane. It's brilliant." And the guy says, "Yeah, it's brilliant, but that doesn't mean we have to watch it." And that became a term for me and Sean over the years about, discussing about how revered something is versus its watchability. Like, hey, man, let's keep it going. Let's keep it tight. Let's make this interesting. So I don't think Fantasia works on its own merit. And I think it's let's get this going. Once you take away all the accolades and the understanding that it was a groundbreaking experiment in animation techniques, what you're left with is a feature that doesn't actually feature anything, So it's brilliant, but I don't know that we actually have to watch it. Is what I'm saying. It's two things. With everything that I can say I don't like about it, it's one or two of these two things, or both of them. It's either pretentious or lazy. So, and in one case, and I'll bring it up later, one case, there's actually something they do that is both pretentious and lazy. I should state before getting into this, I might be a little bit biased because, well, we're all biased, but I don't think vignettes work in features very much. That's kind of why I love Monty Python so much, because very quickly when Python started making movies, they had left the world of TV and albums, where they could exist within a single sketch, and a sketch that was as long or as short as they needed it to be. They soon realized when they went to features, they had to figure out a way to at least disguise the sketch material so that it didn't feel like sketches. There had to be main characters and some semblance of a plot if you're going to sustain an audience's attention for more than an hour. And I think that's the very least you can ask of a feature-length anything. Keep me watching by not changing every single setting, scenario, and character on me every 10 minutes or so.
Sure.
So that's the big gripe. Fantasia has no narrative. Now, if that's my only point, so what? You think so what? But as I said, it's pretentiousness or laziness. So it's mostly a superficial movie in this regard, but instead of using disposable music with this superficial thing, they use the best music of all time, which to me is an equation for pretentiousness, and the result is a 2-hour proverbial man bun. Now, my second favorite director at Warner Brothers was Chuck Jones. So I'm no stranger to animation made by someone who loves the smell of his own shit. But Chuck at least delivers the goods. To be pretentious about something while not respecting the medium is an egregious sin, and many have stated that Walt really thought he was who he is back then and was heard to say, "This movie's really gonna make Beethoven." When Chuck Jones gets all pretentious and tries to do his own version of a Wagnerian opera, he doesn't, in his own mind, think he's better than Wagner. So I'm sorry, I should have written this all concise. I'm going through notes and trying to make it sound like I actually had a point here.
That's all right.
The movie, I'm struggling to decide if I mean that the movie breaks its own rules or if it just doesn't hear itself. You ever say that to somebody? Like, do you fucking hear yourself? You know, like, do you fucking hear yourself, Greg Duffel? That's what it feels like. It's like you want to say this to the movie. Do you fuck at the very beginning? The guy, not Leopold, that guy. He says, and by the way, the ADR on his voice is just terrible. It's not even his voice, but very off-putting. But anyway, he says that there are 3 different kinds of music that they'll be using. One is the kind that tells a story. This, by the way, it's not kinds of music. They're all classical music. It doesn't change. And by the way, I don't think it was called classical music when it was written. But yeah, it was 3 different kinds of music. One that tells a story. And remember, my main bitch about this is there's no narrative. One that tells a story. The second one conveys a feeling which could be used to tell a story. And the third one exists, and I'm quoting him, just for the sake of music. All that stuff that he just described is right at the beginning of the movie. And it's some of the worst stuff in the movie. Right at the fucking beginning. Because where else would you put it, right, Walt? But here's my point about the stuff at the beginning being just visual accompaniment and, again, lazy. Because it's just orbs and shapes. Here's why that's lazy. It's not because it's orbs and shapes and all that. A big chunk of the music selected for this piece at the beginning that is just music for its own sake and not something that could be used for telling an actual story is Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite, a literal chapter in a giant fucking story. You're telling me you can't figure out a story for this music that was literally composed to tell a story? Really? This music that is the story of the Nutcracker, you're saying you can't make another story with it? That's like saying you can't make another statue with leftover clay. It's blatant laziness. Walt and company knew how to tell a story by this point. They copped out and they put it right at the fucking beginning. Fuck you. And the thing is, I want to say this too, because I am trashing it, but that doesn't mean necessarily that the movie doesn't hold up. Unless, of course, you're talking about some of the racist stuff that's still in there. Not to say nothing of the racist stuff that they cut out. But I do think it holds up for one reason alone, possibly. And that's because people watch movies, they watch stuff the wrong way now. It's fine. We watch movies on our phones while taking shits and packing lunches. I don't know, there's a pudding joke in there somewhere. And we pause them whenever we want, come back later. We've always watched movies instead of reading books, but it's weird now because now we watch movies the way that you read books, a little bit at a time, then you put it in your back pocket. And that's how this movie works best. A little bit at a time, stick it in your back pocket. If you've ever read War and Peace, Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, I liken it to that. It's like, yes, it's brilliant. Yes, it is a cornerstone in the art, in the craft that it represents, the art that it represents. And yes, it is beyond tedious, and no one in their right mind would be able to endure it in one sitting. Again, yes, it's brilliant, but that doesn't mean we have to watch it. I honestly do think that Walt was somewhat aware of this, because I think most people would agree, whether you liked it or not, the best part about it is The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that Walt used Mickey and Fantasia because he was worried the film couldn't be too obtuse. This is not too long after Snow White, and despite the overwhelming success it had, Walt was no stranger to Hollywood telling him he was out of his mind for daring to dream up something so different. And as different as a film as Fantasia is today, it was beyond anything the world had seen when it was in production. So I think Mickey's involvement. And again, this is just a guess. I wouldn't even call it an educated guess because of a great many things Disney I am ignorant. But something tells me that Disney's involvement here is a failsafe, or Mickey's involvement here is a
Yeah,
failsafe
that is
by
true.
Walt.
Yeah,
Is it?
that's why he's
Okay.
there. What do you
Yeah.
think of this?
Wait. Well, wasn't he on the
Oh yeah,
poster as
that's why
well?
they had it there, because like, what else would you put
Yeah.
on the poster?
Yeah.
Leopold.
I guess.
And then he used it to put kids to sleep pretty much. I remember
You know
getting
what?
that on a VHS tape. I watched the Mickey part and then nothing else afterwards when I was a little kid. So.
I've got to say though, I saw Fantasia a couple years ago in Buffalo when John Culhane was still alive. He introduced it. Kids weren't asleep. I mean, everybody seemed pretty attentive. But Trevor, what do you think about Fantasia sort of being a forerunner to UPA almost in its aims or aimlessness?
Well, I'm probably not the first person to say this. I'll get to that in a second. I will tell you this, that I think, because I saw it when I was 6 first, and I remember not liking it right away. But I remember then thinking that the centaur sequences, and this is another good reason to hate the movie, the centaur sequence is probably single-handedly responsible for stupid fucking My Little Pony. But I don't know. I don't know enough about UPA to comment. I do know that they love pretentiousness.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretentious. It introduced pretentious.
Chuck Jones is their god and savior. So, why wouldn't they? Yeah. I don't know. But I do want to tell you the stuff with the hippos, flamingos, and the crocs. Night on Bald Mountain, that stuff is good, I think. But in that sequence with the dinosaurs, have you guys seen Jurassic World?
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie yet?
I'm not a fan.
I was like those kids in Jurassic World. I'm just sitting there like, yeah, those brachiosaurs look amazing, but so fucking what?
Yeah.
And here's the thing I was going to say was, this is probably the last thing I'll say. I have 2 more notes here I want to make. I said that there was one thing that was both pretentious and lazy, and this is what it was. So you guys remember that the intermission is included in the home video version now?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my gripe about that. That little part there is the one time where the movie is both pretentious and lazy, because to include the intermission is pretentious. Okay, because I'm sure when they did the movie live, when it actually came out, there probably was a real intermission.
There was.
Right.
They recut it
and
for the Roadshow. They tried to make it like the Roadshow edition that first came out back in 1940.
But it was in the original theatrical run.
I think so.
No, they were trying to
I
estimate.
Okay, well, either way, so they say in the home video version, they say there's a 15-minute intermission, and then everyone leaves, right, and the curtain comes down, and then it cuts as soon for we see the curtain for like 5 seconds, and then it cuts what I presume was all of that 15 minutes out. So the inclusion of the intermission is what's pretentious, but cutting out the 15-minute chunk is lazy. That's what I'm saying. It's like, we don't need the intermission watching it on home video. There's no reason for that. And a lot of people that watch stuff on home video don't have any context for what an intermission is. So it's pretentious to include it. But if you're going to include it, go all the fucking way, baby. It's like Robin Williams said about partial circumcision. You either go all the way or fucking forget it.
Oh, jeez.
So anyway, and my very last note about this, and this is a big, this is what I think ruins the movie, okay? That part where you see the guys they knock over the chimes and they try to repair it, right?
Yeah, I know the part.
The fuck was that about? The fuck was that? Okay, the end.
Oh dear. So something tells me you didn't like Fantasia. I'm just a little.
It's fine. It's better than Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
Yeah. I think though the 2 films there, apples oranges, but yeah, they're both not particularly the best. But I know Austin's been
apples and avocados, really.
Yeah, it could be. But Austin,
Apples and avocados.
have you seen Fantasia recently
I have
at
never
all?
seen Fantasia in my life.
Wow.
Okay.
You're not missing anything.
I, I would
What about the
say,
cherubs whose ass turns into a heart? What about that?
I mean, yeah.
oh, Austin, I would definitely listen to Trev on one thing that he mentioned earlier. Give it a watch, but because they're in separate sections, just watch like one at a time, like you would with a short subject. That's I think
Actually, no. What? No. See if you can actually get through it in one sitting. I would genuinely want to know if you could make it
I
all
mean,
the
I
way
can't even
through.
get through like a Disney cartoon, like a 7-minute cartoon in one sitting. So
well.
I don't know,
Well, there you go.
75 minutes. I don't know. We'll see.
It's 2 hours.
All right.
Fantasia's 2 hours.
Okay, never mind.
It's 2 hours too long, is what you mean to say.
But I think that
Look,
that'll
no,
be on
it's
my channel. I'll do like a live stream thingy where it'll have Austin's reactions as he's trying to watch the movie. You know, I'll get him to say his feelings about it and see how long he survived. So Thad, you're like
the thing is, it's just I don't think it works, and I started to say that about the vignettes. I don't think it works as a overall piece. I mean, you could, it really does feel like a cop out because it's very, very, visual. Like the music is very visual. It's used. It was designed in some cases to accompany a story, and you could I mean, I think that Walt, on some level, just was like, "No, look how grandiose and amazing this is. We're using this amazing music, full piece orchestra. We're getting what's his name from the who's the guy that did the music on it, other than Leopold?
Deems Taylor.
Yes, but no, it's grandiose and everything, and I feel like Walt was. He may have been a little bit old fashioned at this point, being like, well, just marrying, this great music to these great visuals would be enough. And spectacle of it, like Marvel movies,
Yeah.
like
Well, it was a big event.
but it's like, no,
It was made to be.
it was,
big
yeah.
event.
And speaking as somebody who has had many trips to the the Bishop Planetarium and stuff like that, sometimes you can get away with just colors and light in a dark area and like some really great music, but I don't think it works as a whole on this. That's the movie's biggest crime.
So what do you think, Thad? Do you agree with Trev on a lot of what he said about Fantasia?
Not a lot of it, but I definitely see where he's coming from. It is very pretentious in spots, but it's just who else would have done that in 1940 animation or film other than Walt Disney? I mean, it doesn't mean I have to love it or think it's the greatest thing ever, but I definitely respect it, and I can see Trevor does too. But
That's why that expression or that line that Sean and I wrote so many years ago kept coming in my head. Yes, it's brilliant. That doesn't mean we have to watch it.
And it's definitely not my go-to film for the Walt Disney classics. Definitely not for that. Not for that first period where the pre-war, pre-strike period, where those might be alone amongst the filmography that could hold up with the other live-action film of the day. I mean, it's before animated feature became such a kiss of death word, like this is kiddie stuff. These were really, these could play up against a Ford movie or something at the time. But as far should I pick the one I hate? It's not going to be the one Trevor thinks it's going to be.
Oh,
I'll pick the
I'll
one
definitely.
I hate.
Yep.
You're very lucky about that, by the way.
Well, I don't hate that movie for one, but since we're discussing hatred, and I guess we've mentioned all older movies. I'll say it. I hate Sleeping Beauty. Hate it. I've never been able to stay awake through it.
How ironic.
Well, it seems to be. I had a couple of thoughts about it, and it is the one movie that really did almost wreck the studio, because the movie I'm going to pick that I love that everybody hates was also a financial failure, but Sleeping Beauty really did almost wreck Walt Disney feature animation. And I kind of almost wish it did because I would love to have. Let me say this. This is the one point where everybody has their fantasies. Like oh well, what if this happened? What would history have looked like? And I really wonder if Walt checked out a feature animation after Sleeping Beauty, what feature animation would look like in general, because feature animation is so beholden to the Disney name to this day.
Mm.
So I just wonder what it would have looked like without them in the picture. But as far as Sleeping Beauty itself, what everybody claims is the best part of it, Evine Earl's design work, I've always found it very cold and sterile. In fact, somebody who visited him, I'm not going to mention who it was, but his wife was with him, and they visited Evine Earl when he was interviewing him, and she was trying to remember the guy's name. Who's that guy with all those black paintings everywhere that, all those flat paintings? He was Sleeping Beauty. He's like, oh, Evine Earl. Yeah, he was weird. But it just seems like like someone's poor imitation of a Disney film, made by Disney itself. And I'm sure we could mention all sorts of films that fit that mold, but this this really feels like, everybody was mentally checked out, and for as far back as its development goes. I mean, Chuck Jones was working on it when he was at Disney for a brief period, and that was in '53, and the movie came out in '59, and and it just nothing about it clicks for me. It's just, it's paint by the numbers. In fact, Milt Gray, the historian, he told me years ago he had a 16 millimeter print, and just as an experiment, he cut 20 minutes out of it. And he said he made a much better movie. I never asked him what 20 minutes he cut out of it, but he said he almost made it almost feel like a film noir. And I'd have to imagine it
Oh
was
wow.
all that stuff with the fairies. It's also stupid and juvenile, and it's like up until that point, I can't think of any Disney feature that was really, you know, particularly cloying or juvenile. And this one, it's all stuff we've seen before, better in Snow White or in even Cinderella. Nothing goes for it for me. And the Tchaikovsky soundtrack, that's just pretentious too. Going back to what Trevor said about, they're trying to tell. There's already a story there, and they're trying to tell a new story with an old story that already exists.
No, they weren't even trying to tell a story. They had music that you could tell a story with, and they chose
Right,
not to.
exactly. But I'm trying to think, what else do I hate about that thing? Well, Milk Call basically was, he was tortured on that movie. I think that's where he had his
Oh yeah.
biggest falling out with Frank and Ollie over that, because that this is all stuff that I've heard people say in either unpublished interviews or off record. But Milt would always get tattletaled on by Frank and Ollie, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Like, if he would bitch about Walt, they would be right at Walt's door. Did you hear what Milt said about you? Yeah. And that's why he always got stuck with boring assignments like the Prince and all that stuff. Because Milt was really a great animator at comic stuff. If you look at Trevor's favorite, well, he's not going to pick it now, but Song of the South, Milt Call's best work is in that film, and it's funny as hell. But and you would never
Wait.
know that it was the same guy doing this boring, quasi rotoscoped crap.
Well, what about you think it's better than what he did on Jungle Book with Shere
Shere
Khan?
Khan is the high point of a film I really loved as a kid, but as I get older, I really see where the critics' point of view, is valid.
Well, you're talking about the movie. I mean, just specifically speaking
Oh,
about his
that's
animation of
fine. I mean, that's the most
yeah.
well-observed acted stuff
Yeah, Shere Khan,
in
yeah.
in Disney '60s animation for sure. What was it? Where he's picking Ka's nose with his claw? That's so. I love that. It's such subtle stuff.
Because didn't he do Medusa as well in The Rescuers?
Medusa
I'm
was
just
him
trying to think.
going nuts right before he just left, and right after he what was that infamous phone call he did? He got a call and he's like, yeah, if I wanted to work on shit, I'd have stayed at Disney's, and he hangs up, Bakshi.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Thad will be
Can
probably
you
shocked.
imagine seeing Milt call in a
I
Bakshi
could
film?
really, I honestly could,
Yeah.
because he probably would have given him free reign while driving him nuts at the same time. But
That would be interesting. That would definitely be interesting. I mean, Thad would be probably shocked to learn that I own 4 editions of Sleeping Beauty. So
no, I'm not shocked, because they make you buy it all over again. You know, well, we changed the colors to this, so you got to buy it now. You know.
Well, the editions that they
she
came out
ain't-
with, they had the DVD 2-disc set, then they made a platinum 2-disc Blu-ray, then a diamond edition, and then a signature edition. So I made sure they were really cheap though before I bought those. Like I will say that.
Aurora's dildo version. I don't know what's next. You know, Christ.
And you talk about Aurora.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do
Aurora.
any more editions after. I think it's all streaming and nothing but streaming for Disney. But I will say on the second disc of the original Blu-ray of Sleeping Beauty, there is a cool feature where you get to tour the original Sleeping Beauty walk-through attraction that they had at Disneyland. So that was pretty cool, I thought. But
so I got a question for Thad then. So, all right, Sleeping Beauty. Now I don't have a dog in this either way, because I watched it, maybe 20 times in my life. There was a period where the tape was around, and I will say I like the ending a lot, but because it was the first time I remember seeing any kind of a blood in a character's death or anything. So what are your thoughts on, because they made an Angelina Jolie movie based on Maleficent. So would you say that she's not an interesting character in Sleeping Beauty?
Anyone can be an interesting character, but it just what's the big deal?
Really?
She didn't get invited to a birthday party. Big deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You saying that is the first. That's kind of my point. You saying that is the first time I've even thought about her motive, but I've thought back to many cool scenes with her, whether they're rotoscoped, whether it's animated well, and it's like I don't necessarily remember her motive, but I remember those chilling scenes where she's like just fucking torturing the prince. Like she goes down to the jail cell just to fuck with him and be like, come on, man, you get out of here. You know you're going to get out of here, dude. I'm a villain. You're the good guy. It's going to happen. Oh, wait, you're stuck in nothing.
Right.
Never mind.
do you want some dried fruit? Like when you're 99 years old or something, then you can go free or something. It's been a while since I've seen it. Actually.
Yeah. She basically it's like I don't remember necessarily before that movie when I was a kid seeing A, blood, and B, a villain taking such delight, like the way a cat does. I mean, we're both cat people. I mean, the delight she takes in fucking with him while she has him. It's not just that she has him. She goes down and fucks with him. I'll give you, in terms of characters, Aurora is probably, if not the original Mary Sue. She's asleep half the movie. You know what I mean? But did no love at all for Maleficent at all in the movie?
It's a great character design. And I guess I have to look at Milk Gray's version, because I probably would like her more and remember more with 20 minutes of the filler crap cut out. So
yeah, because when you said your friend Milt Gray,
right.
not your friend, when the great Mr. Gray did his cut, I would imagine, based on your description, that a lot of it that was kept was Maleficent
Probably
stuff.
that it can be. It is very well. See, this is even showing the high standards back then, that even a movie I really actively dislike, I don't know if I'd go into hate. I might have to backtrack, but there's still really good qualities to it, and they knew how to do chilling sexually repressed women, because that's the definition of the Queen in Snow White, for sure.
Oh God, yeah.
And Maleficent a bit here too, and I think that's them trying to recapture that glory. But
In fact, the hag that she turns into gets more dick than the queen does. I'm sure. She goes around peddling her wares, gentlemen. See through the
Yes.
lines.
But what about you, Austin? What did you have you seen Sleeping Beauty?
This is gonna be kind of embarrassing. I'm not really that much of a Disney fan in any way, so I've never seen. Well, I have. This DVD's somewhere around my house. I probably saw it a while ago, but I remember nothing about it.
What? It's unmemorable.
You're gonna make
I
Thad
know
jealous.
I am very jealous.
I'll lend you one of my 4 copies, okay, Austin? I'll send one over. I'll send one over. But look, I mean, my thoughts on that. Did I even give my thoughts on Fantasia? I don't think I did. But
No, you didn't.
no. So I'll do both, and then I'll do the one I hate, which will be an actual departure from what we've been discussing. Okay, so Fantasia. If I go,
Let me answer for Austin. Let me answer for Austin already. I didn't see it.
Oh,
That's what he said.
Oh yeah, sure. No, with Fantasia, as long as I got the right mindset, I'm fine with sitting down, turning up the music and just going with the flow. I love seeing the animation, I love the music in it and whatnot. But I do agree though with what you've been saying there, Trevor, with how pretentious it can be and all that stuff. So it's not one of my favorites, but it is something that I can enjoy. In terms of for what it is. I mean, it actually sort of started as a Mickey Mouse comeback thing where they were doing Sorcerer's Apprentice. It was going to be its own thing, but they just kept on increasing costs towards it. They just kept on building, and there was no way it was going to make its money back if it was released as short. And then, Fantasia came to be. At least that's what I gathered from that wonderful Mickey Mouse book that I've been reading recently, which I highly recommend. You know the one I'm talking about, Thad? I've got the authors.
What that huge hernia-inducing book?
I got the non-hernia-inducing edition.
Oh, well, there's a lot of stuff cut from that, so you might want to look into investing into that manhole cover. But because I know my friend David Gerstein and my other friend JB Kaufman put a lot of work into that, and they're putting a lot of work into this Donald Duck equivalent that they're doing. So
Ooh, I can't wait for that one, and it shows the book even in the small form because I showed it to my wife to say she's like, I don't know what to get you for Christmas anymore. I said, all right, get this, and she didn't know there was 2 editions or anything, so she got me that, and for what it is, I thought it was brilliant. But anyway, with Fantasia, yeah, I enjoyed it, but yeah, I can definitely agree if people don't like it and how pretentious it is. Now, Sleeping Beauty, look.
What about the sequel? Did anyone like the
Fantasia
sequel?
2000.
I thought it was more.
Oh God.
Right.
No comment.
Rhapsody in Blue.
That's
I will
good.
say
I like that.
that one scene was directed by Eric Goldberg.
Oh, that's the Hirschfeld one, right?
Yes, that one makes the whole thing like worth watching. Like, I
love Penn and Teller, and it's like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was also Bette Midler and a few other.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was. If you read Disney War, there's a lot of stuff on it in there as well. I think the Eisner was forcing them; they had to use the music for that Donald Duck sequence. I forgot what's called that. The graduation song. I forgot what it's called. Yeah, that's the one.
You want the name of it? I think it's Pomp and Circumstance or something.
That's the one. Pomp and Circumstance. Yeah, basically, it was Roy Disney who was helping produce that was apparently forced into including that song or something. It was really weird. But I think Fantasia 2000 is worth watching for Rhapsody in Blue. Like that one sequence, you can skip everything else, but that one is amazing.
Or you could just watch it on YouTube. That sequence is probably up somewhere.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But I will say with Sleeping Beauty, I admire the design. I do disagree if you felt it was cold. That I mean, obviously, there's a difference of opinion there. I mean, I quite enjoy it, but I do agree, though, that there's a lot of fluff in that film. It's especially that one long sequence where Aurora meets the prince. That the whole 12-minute unbroken sequence. I mean, that could have. I think it was directed by one of the directors only, or something. It was a big mess. But stylistically, I love it. I love the ending battle. Maleficent,
Isn't it the shit?
Great character.
Dude, I don't know what, like, I feel like Thad just didn't mention it because he knows it's awesome.
Well, it's a good part of it, but it's a highlight. But like I said, all these films have highlights, but you know, stacked together,
Yeah, you're right.
it's
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely
plus
agree
by
with
the
that.
time you're getting to it, you're waking up from your own coma, saying, "Well, wait, what is this? What is this?" Back to sleep.
That's right.
We're about to have another feud.
And that's actually the first use of Xerox technique that they would use in 101 Dalmatians too. So, but I think it's time.
And same actress too, right? The Cruella who played Maleficent.
I don't know.
No, I don't think so. No.
No.
But
I'm pretty sure. I mean, again, a great many things Disney. I'm ignorant, but I swear there's some connection to Cruella and Maleficent.
Yeah, not sure offhand. Not
There's-
sure offhand. But in a change of pace,
Austin,
I'll go through what I hate. And I do have a hatred for this one. So I mean, the one I'm picking is Shrek. You know, the
somebody that.
Oh yeah, you were preparing for that. That's why you were late to join us. You were just getting your vocal cords ready for that one.
I certainly was. Yeah, we all know I love Smash Mouth.
Yes. Oh, that song was everywhere when I was growing up. So look, I'll give you guys a bit of history, okay? So, you know, back in 2001, I was in high school in year 11. So for the US, that would be like the equivalent of being in college. So, or thereabouts anyway. And I remember when this thing was in the cinemas and it was huge. I mean, I don't doubt that this was one massive, successful movie. It was everywhere. And those who had seen it in the cinema was telling me it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen, ever. But for whatever reason, I actually missed it in the cinema. I think I was like studying or exams or whatever it was at the time. I'm not sure. But so it comes on DVD and I was really eager to see it. So, you know, we thought, okay, family movie night. So while I was waiting for the family to get ready, I checked out a special feature on the DVD, which was some kind of a jukebox musical thingy or something that they did for that release. And I thought, oh, okay, it is what it is, you know, okay. So when we finally watched the movie and I just didn't laugh at all. I was thinking like none of the jokes landed. And when the credits rolled, I was thinking,
you? How dare you?
I was thinking, I was thinking, is this it? Like everyone said it was the funniest thing ever made. I mean, my friend's boyfriend at the time even had the Shrek soundtrack for his car. I mean, remember CDs? I mean, Austin might be too young for that. And he listened to that song over and over. Hence, you know,
I remember tapes.
Yeah, so do I. My first car had a tape deck. But yeah, he loved the film so much that he even had the soundtrack, you know. And you know, a few weeks later, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it another go because sometimes you when you watch something and everyone's telling you one thing and you watch it and you're expecting something else, if that makes sense. Like, I'll give you another example. When I first watched Doctor Strangelove, and I'm a Kubrick fan, right? So when I first watched it, I didn't think much of it when I first saw it, okay? But now it's one of my favorite movies of all time, to the point that
whoa. You didn't love it when you first saw it?
I was expecting something else. I think I was expecting more slapstick and less black humor for some reason. The way people were describing it to me. So I think, I don't know. I gave it another go, and now it's one of my favorite films of all time. And I even bought the Columbia Classics 4K set just so I can have the 4K version of the movie. That's how much I love it. So just to give you an idea.
Dude, remind me when next time we chat on Twitter or next time we chat on Skype, dude. I'll tell you all about when I went to England and I went to the Kubrick Museum. Oh, yeah. Good times. Gentlemen, we can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Yeah. Like I didn't think it was bad when I first saw it. It was just not what I was expecting. And I think when I watched it second time, then it sort of was like, okay, I get what's happening. And I watched it again only like a few days ago on the 4K disc. It's a really great disc. But I actually watched Shrek again, and funnily enough, I hated it more. Like, I don't know, everything about it just missed the mark for me. Like, the jokes didn't work for me. The characters were annoying, and I get that's probably the point for someone like Donkey in that, and I just thought it looked ugly and unappealing. And I'll tell you a funny story as well when it comes to Shrek, and I think you guys will like this, right? When I went to university a few years later, and I was doing my Bachelor of Arts degree, which is pretty much 3 years getting an overpriced piece of toilet paper, but anyway, that's another topic. One of my teachers there thought Shrek was the most brilliant thing ever, and of course, the film ended up being one of our assignments.
Uh-oh.
It was like, I think it was about like, you have to write how the film subverted fairy tales or something. I don't know, some pretentious rubbish or whatever it was, And recently I revisited the film with my kids because there were, my kids were born in 2013, 2014 respectively. So they're, of course, discovering all of these animated films that came out long before they were born. And, they noticed Shrek and they thought, oh, they want to give it a go. I thought, well, all right, we'll give it a go. And I thought, let's see if my opinion will change. Maybe as an adult, I might find it a better watch. And no, we actually, I still didn't like it. And the kids were like, it's okay. And they didn't really want to see the sequels either. And, if 2020 wasn't bad enough, they put the film in that film registry. I mean, my goodness, that was like a big kick in the teeth for me.
They've put some big kick in the teeth before, so it's nothing new. I mean, it's family. Yeah. It's a Family Guy movie. It's exactly what it is. No,
Did you know that
ugly, no sense of structure. Just joke, and most of them are bad. It was the perfect movie for that time, though, and that's why it stood out, because here was something that had all this blockbuster material behind it, and it wasn't like the continuing failing Disney empire at the time, because Shrek was 2001, and it wasn't, the family-friendly stuff that Pixar was doing, so it really stood out, and I think that made it rise to the top more than it should have. I mean, it shouldn't have won an Oscar, but
it won an Oscar?
Yeah.
Yeah, Shrek won the Oscar. For animated feature.
Shut the fuck up.
I actually think it's the first animated film Oscar that they decided to put in because they didn't want those pesky animated films.
And June Foray was alive when that happened too. God. That's even worse. All she fought for. And we get Shrek. Shrek, a combination of the two words that most accurately describe that movie. Shit and Drek.
Yeah, I will give one positive to Shrek, believe it or not. And John Lithgow.
It helped jumpstart. It's helped jumpstart Father of the Pride.
Oh, yes, that one.
What is that? Jesus.
Yeah, that thing.
I'll tell you this. I remember, my thing is, having done stand-up and I remember laughs. And if it's a funny movie, I remember the big laughs that I had. But if it's a movie like Shrek where I only laughed once, for some reason, I always remember the one thing I laughed at. And so I can tell you, I remember seeing it in the theater and I remember the one laugh. And the rest of the time, stone-faced, and I was stoned, but literally stone-faced looking at the screen like, are you really? You thought that'd be funny? And it wasn't like I wasn't doing what you're supposed to do where you laugh at the scenario or the delivery. I laughed at the balls of whoever wrote the joke. And I was like, really? Wow, you thought that? And they, it was in there, but it's when Donkey wants to sleep inside with Shrek. And he shuts the door on him, and you can hear Donkey outside, and he's mumbling, and he says something like, man, I can sleep outside. Shit, I'm a donkey. I was born outside. And I laughed at it, not because of the scenario or the scene or even, and it's Eddie Murphy. By the way, one of the funniest people in the world.
Yep.
Do you know how unfunny a fucking movie you have to be making for Eddie Murphy to not be able to one laugh? And it was a laugh at how bad the comedy was.
Yeah.
There's a great word for it that I have not coined, that somebody, Rich Evans from Red Letter Media coined it. It's called non-medy, because we all know what, when something is not funny, it's just, you're sitting there, you're not laughing. But non-comedy is the opposite of comedy, and this is what I had with Shrek. It's where you're sitting there, and instead of just having no facial expressions, your face drops even more
Wow.
because you're just fuck you. No, I'm not laughing at that. I'm gonna frown at that.
Yeah, I mean, the Matrix
that's
joke, I
what
remember,
Shrek
was
felt
already
like.
out of date by that point. That Matrix joke where she leaps
Oh,
up in
yeah.
the air. It's like, really? It was already out of date, like
Yeah.
a few months afterwards. But I will say,
It-
one
yeah.
positive, John Lithgow. That guy could,
Yeah.
read a phone book, or something for 2 hours for me, and I would probably still be entertained. I mean, that guy is a treasure as far as I'm concerned. It's just a shame.
Again, he's another one of those. He's another one of those like Eddie Murphy, where he's so. I mean, anyone who watched Third Rock from the Sun knows he's a comedic genius as well as a serious dramatic actor.
Oh, yeah.
He's just brilliant. But even he couldn't do anything really worthwhile in Shrek.
Yeah, but that's
So I think we're all agreed. And,
yeah.
and Austin definitely hasn't seen it. So
Yeah, I mean,
I wanted to,
I grew up on a healthy diet of like the best Warner and MGM stuff. I never even really saw like the best animated features. I've never seen Shrek in my life before.
can I say something let me say something directly to you, Austin, as a filmmaker, outside of all of this animation nonsense. You have to watch shitty movies, dude.
Well, I do. I get myself into some crap when I'm trying to discover the gold.
Yeah. You gotta watch the shit as much as it helps. It sounds cliche as fuck to say. I admit that, but you gotta watch shit, even animation too. You gotta watch the shit stuff every now and again to really appreciate the good stuff.
I mean,
he rewatches my buddy commentaries for his feel on that.
At least the commentaries you do are good. It would be really bad if you did bad commentaries for bad cartoons.
Oh, well,
fitting, but it wouldn't really work.
No, I try to educate as much as I can, but some of those, I don't know how I did all the buddies solo at the time, mind you. But anyway, that's
or sober
and sober too. Yes, sober, completely like going, what am I doing with my life? At that point, Bugs Bunny was so far away. But anyway. All
For
right.
the record, I know what you're doing with your life, and it's not going to end well.
But let's get ourselves into a bit of more of on a positive note. We can say about films that we all love. That others
wait. So, Austin, you said that the movie that you hated was Aristocats. Okay, I really should have gotten here on time. Why didn't you like it?
Well, I said a lot of shit about that thing. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't.
No, it's okay. Just like to sum it up, I don't really like the director.
It's a 1970 Disney movie. Enough said.
Yeah.
There's good stuff in the 70s from Disney and late 60s.
You'll probably be heartbroken to know this, but they've literally done no preservation work on any of the titles. Like between all the live action titles, they haven't done any work between Mary Poppins and Little Mermaid. Let's put it that way.
Well, they were started Mary Poppins.
Yeah, they did, but I'm saying, in between those, so there's two bookends. Except for a couple of animated titles, there's been no preservation work done on those films.
Wow.
So there's like 22 years of films where they haven't done any preservation work.
So they have the same attitude about it as you do, apparently.
Possibly.
It's like, we didn't. Well, I understand not restoring the Black Cauldron, but I mean, come on.
Well, they did. There's a 4K version on Disney Plus right now.
For the love of Christ!
This is why the terrorists hate us.
This is why I don't feel bad not being a Disney fan and not being the Disney critic.
Right.
I'm not into that. There's too much stuff to get mad at.
So, who wants to go first with what they love and that everyone else seems to hate?
I mean, I guess go
but
first again, unless anybody else to.
Go right ahead, Austin.
Okay. All right. So the one that I like, you
said that very sinisterly. Go right ahead, Austin. I did.
I love the delivery.
So the one I like, it's really obscure, and a lot of my love for it, well, it's a combination between my love for it is viewing it as a film and also the nostalgia I have for it. I think it was put on 2004's Over the Hedge. It's a DreamWorks film.
Oh, boy.
It was put out the same year as The Incredibles and Shrek
And it's
2.
a better movie.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, what I really like about this thing is I kind of like how the story is structured more than anything about it. It's got stakes, which I feel like a lot of animated movies have, but they don't really get emphasized enough. In this film, the stakes are set up right away in this opening scene, and this, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the whole thing is like this raccoon, he's trying to get some food, and he like screws up, like he tries to sneak into some bear's cave, and he like screws up the entire thing. And he's got to get the whole cart of food back in like a week, and it's like this mountain of food. The stakes are set up right away instead of like being set up later on after the setup. And just every action that the characters make after that, there's so much more pressure on each and every action because the end goal, what it has to be. He's got to get all this food back, and just any tiny mistake that's made could make or break the outcome, which would be that this raccoon dies. And, it keeps the audience on the edges of their seats. And that's what I like about it. And I also like the design work on the thing. It's fun. It's also original, which is originality is something I feel like a lot of animated films, especially these days, lack. It came before the Disney, like the actual company, not like Pixar or something that they bought, started doing full-length CGI films. And those things, especially like Frozen, are like main influences on the design work in CGI films. But here the designs are original, and they're kind of fresh, and they're not really even like anything that Pixar was doing around the time. And each character has a distinct look and also a personality to set themselves apart from the others. And also, about this thing, the soundtrack is just amazing. I think it fits the film really well, and being a CGI movie, you're going to compare it naturally to the Pixar movies from around the time. But a lot of Pixar films usually lack like an original soundtrack. The music for the Pixar films to me is usually just another group of songs put together with no lyrics or originality to them. And a lot of them don't really have a great tune or melody to follow. And they usually just consist of excessive Mickey Mousing, which, in case you guys don't know, is like when the music like, reflects the character's actions. And like if someone's walking, you'll hear like a xylophone just like as they walk.
Why is it called Mickey Mousing?
Mickey Mouse does.
Yeah, that was.
Huh?
Mickey Mouse does it, but going back to the design,
I could have guessed that. I don't know why.
Didn't Dave Feast work on Over the Hedge?
I
think he did. So that might be where some of the design work you're talking about might have been. He might have been an influence on that. I haven't seen the film myself, but I do remember Dave worked on. He worked on that or the sequel. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think there's a sequel to it. I don't think there's a sequel to it.
There's none.
Yeah.
There
is?
Yeah. Or at least when I typed it in to Google, one of the things that came up was Over the Hedge 2 as a frequently searched thing. So maybe people are asking about it.
Yeah, there isn't any. No. I can't say I think I've seen it. But wow, a long time ago. Though.
This is great. Austin is getting revenge from all on. We're getting revenge on him. It's like none of us have seen your movie either, bruh.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, the film does feature William Shatner, so I guess maybe I should watch.
Does it really?
Yeah, and it's got Steve Carell. When he was doing The Office.
Oh boy,
so that's kind of cool. It's got a good cast.
Oh boy,
Bruce Willis,
instantly hilarious.
Yeah.
But no, for me,
we're gonna get TJ Miller.
I mean, look
TJ Miller's in it too.
Gary Shandling
needs something fun.
Gary Shandling
is hilarious.
Yeah, he's in it. So I guess that's worth me watching, even just for him. The late great Shandling, for sure. But
he had one of the best quotes ever. He said, "The world is far too noisy. And the answers are in the silence. And but the way the world's structured now, it's far too noisy, and we need to learn how to shut the fuck up." Which is, to me, so perfectly describes his character, because he was a Zen like Buddha guy, but he was also a stand-up comic. So he's looking for answers and speaking wisely, but he's also like, fuck this. people suck. And I'll say it. Anyway, but I guess I'll have to check this movie out.
It's not bad. You just want to wrap up my whole thoughts here. You know,
Can I ask you a question though? Because you said something about at the beginning you watched it when you were how old?
oh jeez, I don't even remember. I just saw it all the time as a kid.
Okay. Do you think it's really the movie's merit, its own merit, or is it because you said it was also your nostalgia? How much of it would you say is your nostalgia and the movie versus the movie itself?
That's a good question, actually. I mean, I try to look at things, especially like this kind of stuff that I used to see a lot in my childhood, like from an unbiased point of view. I don't think a lot of my love for this.
Which, by the way, does not exist. An unbiased opinion. I don't think that exists.
But just I don't even have many memories of just watching. I just remember it constantly watching, and the reasons that I love it, none of this even came to my mind when I was watching it as a 5 or 6 or however old I was anyways. But, it was up against, like I said, Incredibles and Shrek 2, we're both 2004. But I think it's, it's fun, it's original, and it's a charming film. And it tries to go against all kinds of different standards that were set for any kind of animated film at the time. I enjoy it a lot.
I hated The Incredibles.
Again, I am very uncultured in the world of features. I've never seen The Incredibles.
I really wanted to like it too. Not everybody, but a lot of people in my Thad's in my world at the time were praising it, and also and rightly so. Very talented people involved, but I was not on board, man. I'm sorry, and I remember one of my friends telling me too, one of my FX friends, which was telling me, oh, but look at the girl's hair. It doesn't look like real hair. They spent a fortune in doing this and that. Now it looks like real hair. I'm like, yeah, it looks like real hair on completely fake characters. What's the fucking point? Who gives a fuck? I'm sorry.
With Incredibles, I grew to like it eventually. I mean, the film another Brad Bird film, The Iron Giant. See, I watched it and I thought it was just okay.
I love that movie.
See, I thought it was just okay.
I love that.
I like people were saying that they were crying at the end, and when it finished, I thought, okay, it's a solid film. There's nothing wrong with it. If people ask me, oh, should I see it? I will say, yeah, go and see it. But it didn't do much for me like everyone else seems to. But anyway, that's
the thing.
Nah.
The thing about Iron Giant, though, that people don't realize, much like The Shining, it's way better in Ready Player One. Excuse me, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
well.
Sorry, we're getting on stepping on Austin's feet here.
No, that's right. So,
or is he done? Did we finish?
So now, who wants to do the next positive one? I mean, I can go ahead, or Thad can go ahead, or
why don't you go ahead, Anthony?
All right, I'll do it because my choice might make. Yeah. I mean, my choice might make Trevor throw up in his mouth a bit more, but who knows? We'll see. So, the choice I've gone with is Home on the Range, which is a 2004 Disney film. Now, I'm not going to pretend that this is some undiscovered masterpiece that deserves to be on the same pedestal as Pinocchio or anything. I'm not that much in love with it, believe me. It's not a perfect film by any means. But at the time that they made this, of course, the powers that be were like, oh, these 2D films are flunking. DreamWorks, Pixar are of course making all this money, so clearly people aren't interested in 2D, so they just wanted to move on to CG, and of course we got Chicken Little, which is awful. It's really, really bad. But I think at the time when this was released, it got some pretty harsh reviews, and the film was not a major success at all, and it was nowhere near as good as the much more successful Renaissance films, which were still fairly recent at that point in time. But yeah, they were definitely the critics were definitely way too harsh on it. I mean, yeah, it's got Roseanne in it, which is a weaker point in the film, I must say. But I like the fact that the film just does not take itself too seriously. It's just a simple story of some cows trying to save their farm, and it sort of goes against what you would normally see as a hero of that sort of a picture. Normally you'd see, maybe I don't know, like a horse, or you'd see a different. You would not associate cows with being heroes. I thought that was interesting, and the film is short enough. Unlike Fantasia being 2 hours or so, this one is like an hour and 10 minutes or something, so it does not overstay its welcome. The villain, played by Randy Quaid. I mean, we all know that's the sanest person in Hollywood right now, of course. But he does a standout job.
Next to Roseanne.
he does a standout job with that yodeling song that he does in the middle. In fact, speaking of music, I enjoy the songs and the music by Alan Menken. I thought it had a unique style. Like I like the look of the film, and the slapstick is certainly not on the level of the golden age of animation. You're not going to compare this to Tex Avery or anything, but I thought it was fun. He got a few chuckles out of me, and unlike Shrek that I showed to my kids and they were bored with it, I showed them this, and they at least thought it was good. They liked it enough, but. Out of the films that Disney did between 2000 and 2009, this would actually be higher up for me. I mean, my favorite would be probably Emperor's New Groove, but this one might be third or fourth, maybe. But I quite liked it.
You'll have to look it up. I don't know if you've heard it. There's an excellent podcast. I don't remember the name of the podcast. Yeah, really helpful. But it interviewed both of the directors, Will Finn and John Sanford, and they're very candid and upfront about everything. It's an excellent listen.
Actually,
yeah,
that podcast, you can find it at looneycritic.com.
No,
I'm just kidding.
No, it's great. And they're very upfront. I mean, they knew going into it that it was stacked against them. They knew it was going to be the last hand-drawn feature, and was predisposed to shit on it. And it was just an interesting, frank discussion of the film. And
yeah, I can imagine, because I'm Facebook friends with John Sanford, and he asked him a few things about it, and he's a nice guy overall. He's on Twitter and that, and just the making of this film. I mean, I actually haven't listened to the audio commentary. I'll be curious to hear that podcast and then hearing it up against the official audio commentary that was released by Disney, just to see how different the whole thing is. But
they let them record audio commentary for it. Wow,
they did. Yep, they did. Wow, and so they'll be really interested in hearing that commentary and then hearing the real commentary later on. I'll definitely track it down. I appreciate that. As you said, it was like this film was stacked against it and that, and I think people were already going in and going, "Oh, this is just another 2D film. It's nothing of any importance. 3D films are the future, But anyway, I know I can really guess Austin has not seen it. Am I right, Austin?
Actually, I barely remember having like some weird blockbuster DVD of this thing sitting on my shelf. Again, it's probably somewhere around here. I'd have to find it, but I probably saw it at one point, although I don't remember a single thing about it.
Yeah, fair enough. And make sure you return it back to Blockbuster. Yeah, I mean, they might be giving this,
they need it. They need it.
Go find the store, and they'll need it back for sure. But Trev, your thoughts on Permanent Range? Have you seen it for starters?
Yes, but the thing is, I was on acid, and I'm of the opinion that it didn't improve the film. But here, I also don't know if it took anything away. I know that I can tell you the one cogent thought that I had watching it that I was surprised later to find after watching this thing. Because remember, you said it came out in 2004.
Yeah.
The memory is, I remember looking at it and going, oh, this is some late 90s, fully animated feature that I must have missed, in the late 90s when I was watching this kind of stuff a lot more closely. And then of course, whenever I saw it again, referenced again, I saw the date and I realized, oh, that's why, it was around that time, because like 2005 was when I would have had acid and would have been doing that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, and I looked at it again, and it's surprising if you've never done acid, it does just, to put it lightly, it does distort, your perceptions. But it's interesting that even through this LSD haze, looking at it completely sober, I still came away with a feeling of, this looks like it was made in the late 90s. Why was it made so late? Like, the only thing missing from the clips that I saw that didn't like put it in the late 90s category would have been, wide angles, like fisheye lens angles and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I noted. I also remember making the joke when I was on acid, when I realized it was Roseanne. And I was like, oh, so now she's finally like she's always played a pig, but now they're like being literal about
Oh
it.
boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the stage, Trevor Thompson. All right. But yeah, that's the two things that I recall about this thing. And so just to answer that question, was it ever shelved at any one point, or is it just coincidence that it looks like? I guess the Frog Prince is it the Frog Princess? That kind of looked
the Princess and the
90s ish
Frogs.
too, didn't it?
Yeah, I think
The Princess and the Frog.
I
Yeah,
think
that looks kind of
yeah, Brother Bear. I think was supposed to be the last one, but for whatever reason they swapped it with that. I mean, no, I'm not going to say Brother Bear is some undiscovered masterpiece or anything, but yeah,
Brother
it
Bear.
wasn't that good.
but
Yeah,
yeah, like it did. Even that one had a kind of a 90s look to it. If it's because that's when that kind of a movie died,
well,
shot on film. Even
Brother Bear was basically they were trying to redo The Lion King, and for whatever reason, they thought the most successful thing about Tarzan was Phil Collins, so they brought him back for whatever reason, and for uh, and I don't know, the film just it was a bit of a mess, I will say.
what was it about though? The movie. What was the story of it? You said it was pigs.
Oh, the Home on the Range.
Yeah, it's cows are gonna
Yeah.
lose their home. That's it. They
Oh,
couldn't be in any mortal danger of being, what cows will actually become, hamburgers. Otherwise,
uh-huh.
McDonald's would have
Yeah,
pulled their financing.
I
So
got you.
no, that's not a joke. That's literally why they're not in any actual mortal danger. McDonald's wouldn't have any of it.
Oh, you're not
Oh, I
even.
can
No.
imagine that. Yeah, I can believe you on that. Yeah, I definitely can.
Damn.
Definitely can. But yeah, well, I mean, that's my choice anyway. I mean, it's not going to be on my top 10 or anything, but I watched it, well
So
after,
you,
and I thought it was okay.
so your fond memories of it are they're like it's based on the movie itself, not so much the actual nostalgia of watching it.
No, see, I watched it not at the time of release, when all the reviews would have come out and so on. I watched it later, pretty much when this new quote unquote renaissance started for Disney after Tangled and that. And I didn't grow up with this film, so there's no nostalgia. It was just basically get in, watch it. It's like, oh, okay, that's it.
So that's why. You would say you like it based on the film's actual merit.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I was
Okay.
looking at this particular one, because I could have said, maybe Fox and the Hound or something, but that one is also tainted by nostalgia. Robin Hood, the Disney Robin Hood, again, that's tainted by nostalgia. I mean, Sword in the Stone, as Thad mentioned before, I grew up with that, and I still love the sorcerer fight that happens in one part of the film. But seeing it as an adult, yeah, it's definitely a mess, but I still enjoyed it for nostalgia reasons, So I try to pick something, I suppose, that had the least amount of nostalgia, and this was it. Well, either this or Good Dinosaur.
I'll go next. So the one that I picked that everyone hates or hated in maybe this case is 1951's Disney classic Alice in Wonderland. I was discussing this with Trevor beforehand, but this movie did very poorly when it came out. It was very poorly received. People just did not warm up to Lewis Carroll, and I don't think they ever really did on film up to this point. This movie in particular always felt like this was a movie Walt Disney thought he had to do, because Wonderland lends itself to animation, and they had about two or three different versions of it going over the years, and what they ended up with was, I think the original treatment was in 1943. What this ended up with, so it came out 8 years later. Even Leonard Maltin doesn't have nice things to say about it, and he loves everything Disney. So, um, but yeah, I might be tainted a bit by nostalgia because this growing up was my favorite along with Dumbo, and this was always considered, the cheap movie that you could run on TV. I mean, I don't know how familiar you guys are with how Disney movies were treated for the longest time, but they wouldn't show them in full on TV. They would show little clips, but you had to go to the movie theater every 7 years if you wanted to see it in reissue.
Oh,
Yeah,
it wasn't
I
like
remember that.
it wasn't until my day in the '80s when they started doing like when they actually had some kind of controlling interest with ABC. It was like the beginning of the ABC
Right.
Disney marriage. They started doing this thing on Sundays with everybody's favorite CEO, Michael Eisner, would host these, Sunday Disney, and that was the first time that they were really showing Disney movies uncut, full length,
Right.
really.
And well, Alice was always considered safe enough to toss. In fact, it was one of the movies they showed. They edited it down a bit so it would fit in an hour on the Disneyland TV show in '54. No other movie had that, I guess, dishonor. But I always loved this thing. I mean, it's really hard to adapt Lewis Carroll because there's no real plot to it anyway. It's other than adults are stupid and the rules are stupid. I mean, that's the only thing you can get from it and go from there. And, I always thought it maybe if my criticism of it is they didn't go wild enough with it because it's just because it has to stick to the Disney vision. You can't get too distorted, Ward Kimball. You gotta stay within on a leash to some degree, but it's just this is where I'm going to criticize. I'm going to get faddish here about the transfers that they put up of the Disney features. Like they wipe everything clean. If you look at it on Disney Plus, like they actually remove water glass effect and different parts. It's
Wow.
very no, it's sickening. Because they know better. They want to give someone, some hack work every couple of years. So, well, what can we remove now, or what colors can we change? And I have it on film. It's the only Disney feature I have on film, an original Technicolor print. So I know what it's supposed to look like, and what's up there isn't what it's supposed to look like. But it's sort of seen its own rediscovery. I mean, that's why Trevor's probably surprised that it was a hated film because, like, every goth girl in America has got an Alice in Wonderland bed sheet or bedspread at this point.
And I definitely dated those goth girls
Exactly. I
myself.
just did the other day.
Good for
Yeah,
you, man.
you see the what was it? She had a pillow case that had Alice, and she's tatted up and with Jack Daniels in her hand or something, and it was like, oh well, I guess I'm getting laid then. I mean,
Oh my, oh my goth.
but no, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and I think that's what a lot of people didn't like about it. With when it came out originally, they were expecting something where there'd be one relatable character in it, and there really isn't.
Now that you're actually saying all this, because we did the polite thing of, well, we're going to be on this podcast later, so let's not talk about this too much now. But now that you're mentioning it, I'm actually thinking about the movie. It makes a weird kind of sense that it didn't do
Mm-hmm.
well because it's not conventional. I mean, you said they had to do a lot of stuff to make it Disney, and certainly possible they may not have done
Mm-hmm.
enough. They may have indulged a little too much. I mean, and speaking as a former, and I'm legitimately, I was a goth in high school.
Oh,
And so I can honestly tell you that Alice in Wonderland informed what later became my love of Lewis
Mm-hmm.
Carroll. And it's it does such a good job because it's in a way, I mean, it's weird to kind of compare it to L. Frank Baum and the
Mm-hmm.
Oz books, but in a weird way, like how the MGM movie does inform people's love of the Oz books, it gets them interested in it. This got me into Lewis
Mm-hmm.
Carroll in that same way. So it may be pretty indulgent and less Disney. I don't know that I can be as
Right.
objective as you can though, because I love it
Right.
so much.
It's no, and I that was another criticism of it. The literary crowd didn't really care for Walt Disney's version of putting his putting his taint on it.
But they never do.
They never do.
They
No,
never
of
do.
course they don't. Of course they're not going to be.
They need to make a Lewis Carroll biopic where Emma Stone or Emma Watson plays him. No, God damn it, I did it wrong both times. Emma Thompson. You need to edit it, Anthony, so it sounds like I'm funny.
Oh, well,
Emma Thompson.
you probably won't hear this podcast for a while then with the edits I got to do. But anyway,
oh my god, yeah.
But
I'll tell you, as a literary guy, that the line from the Walrus and the Carpenter. I mean, I don't remember if it came in the movie, but I'm pretty sure it did. But I say it a lot whenever I ask somebody a question and they don't say anything or they're thinking. It's it's almost the last line in the poem where they say, "Oh, oysters," said the carpenter, "you've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again?" But answer came there none. I love the way that they did that whole sequence, because even though they didn't stick to the action, you know, they only used like maybe 5 or 6 lines from the poem. That's what's so great about what these guys did in the best of these features. They were able to zero in on a piece of literature and figure out what would work as animation. And there's a very specific story in that poem, that plays out. And I guarantee you, any one of those animators that worked on it, or Walt himself, just one read, oh, this needs to be animated. You read it once and you're like, I can totally see this being animated. Yeah, maybe it is Uber Disney. Now, I want to ask you this, because I've never known the answer to this, and I feel like maybe if anyone could answer this, it's the present company. So those Alice shorts that Walt did in the early days in Kansas.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be that Alice?
That was definitely the muse, but it's just some generic girl character that can get into these adventures, and I think that's what he wanted the comparison to be drawn to. She's entering this world with an animated as an animated character, so his association with Lewis Carroll goes a long way. So yeah, and he those shorts are very bad. So
you ain't whistling Dixie, brother.
no, there is a lot of bad silent animation, but Walt, ironically, might have been doing the worst of them. For lack of a better word.
Oh yeah.
What I like about with Alice, I've always liked seeing those Walt Disney introductions, because apparently he hated the film. So,
oh yes, and Walt disowned it.
And
he
did. I just liked how he looked at it. Yeah.
Could one of you guys elect a speaker and say that again? Because
go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I was going to say that. He hated the film, and he essentially did a few intros for his Disneyland TV show to introduce Alice in Wonderland that was showing at the time. And it's just so weird seeing him being all excited introducing this film, knowing deep down that he absolutely hated it. It's just
oh, okay, that's what you're saying. I thought you were saying that he disowned it on the show.
No.
I was going to say, because there's a lot of Alice in Wonderland stuff at the parks.
Well, Walt knew where the money was, and putting that movie in the setting of a park, let's actually make some money off of this thing. The movie sure didn't.
Yeah.
So let's recycle it here.
But it's certainly, you're right though. It's one of the harder to get through in terms of the story. Like, I think part of what really sells it is the animation and the music, the song, and I think if those things weren't there, you would see the seams a little bit more.
I mean, I love the Mary Blair sort of.
Mary did a great job on that. Yes. And there's a couple of other good people on that film. Well, like I said, Ward Kimball, of course, the Mad Tea Party, that's his baby, as well as Cheshire Cat. And doesn't the Queen of Hearts kind of look like Fred Flintstone?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, definitely. And I like how they got the two radio stars at the time, Ed Wynn and Jerry Colonna, for the Mad Hatter and the hair. Just great casting, I thought. with that. Like people, a lot of people today complain about celebrity castings and all that in film, and with good reason, because a lot of it's pretty terrible. But Disney
Yeah,
was
but
doing
those
that.
guys were trained in radio, so they could do voice acting. So
Yeah,
it's not the same as, you get Mr. Carell, for example, and just to do a voice. It's just because it's everyone knows Steve. Edwin did radio all the time. So did Kelowna, and so did Richard Hayden, who's the caterpillar. Um,
Sterling Holloway.
and of course, Sterling Holloway. Who
Yeah.
every character he does sounds the same, but it's wonderful.
Did you ever hear the story about where Jim Cummings followed him?
No.
There's a story that he wanted to, I mean, when Sterling Holloway he was old, but so it was in the early days, early 80s, and it's not like now where you can just get online and listen to clips of somebody. So he wanted to, and to really hear Sterling Holloway. So I don't remember in the story how it was that he followed him, but he found him and he followed him to this restaurant, and unfortunately, he somehow gets behind him, but unfortunately, the guy's eating alone. So the only thing he ever said the entire time was when he ordered for himself his meal. So apparently, that is the story behind if Jim Cummings hasn't done poo in a while, the thing that he says to warm up and to find poo in the recording booth is what he said in that when he ordered. So he'll sit there in the booth and go, "I believe I will have the chowder."
Oh, that's pretty good.
But yeah, that's how he summons him and gets poo back. But yeah, you're right. Sterling was one of many actors who, it was a time when you had to be super versatile. It'd be a voiceover for a commercial or a radio show or an on-camera thing, or you had to be able to dance. You had to be able to sing. You didn't know you had to be ready for any job.
yeah.
So it's not like Steve Carell, and all these guys who's like, well, I'm a TV actor and this TV show is doing really well. So, Dwight from The Office has the most recognizable voice. So we get, I forget his name
Rainn
off the top of my
Wilson.
head, but yeah, he's Rainn Wilson. Yeah. So we get Rainn Wilson to come in and do his Dwight voice, and that's it. It is a different world now to have that whole thing with known actors doing the voices, but yeah.
Which would be an interesting topic in itself, I think. Austin, have you seen Alice?
No,
Of course not.
never.
Oh!
No. No.
You're fired. You're
That's it.
so fucking fired.
We're going to give you some homework, I think, to do after this
Yeah.
podcast.
Paying script without pay.
All right. Well, Trevor, what's the movie you love that everyone hates?
I like that you said that as if I didn't tell you. You're a terrible actor. I'll tell you this much. We know for sure when he means it, because if he fucking hates something, he hates it. My choice, my pick, and I apologize for being all over the map here because I was trying to write these kind of out, but I ran out of time. So you'll be able to tell the difference when I'm reading and then when I'm actually just saying stuff. But the pick was Gulliver's Travels from 1939, the Fleischer, the one of two Fleischer features. Austin, did you see this one?
Do I have to answer that? I mean, I've been intrigued because obviously I love 30s Popeye. That's something I have seen.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely want to see it someday.
Well, I'll start by saying that while this is a wonderful tale, Gulliver's Travels, it is by no means timeless. And again, we need to I just want to specify again, this is the category of I love this. Not a lot of people do. And it didn't do great. It did okay. It did enough to get the Fleischer Studios to do another feature, which horribly bombed for them. But it is by no means timeless, in so much as the period the movie takes place in is every bit as dated as the quality of the animation and the filmmaking process. And that's kind of what I love about it, actually. The fact that it kind of stands as a clear definition between an animated feature film that is a product of its time, which doesn't age particularly well, and one like Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, which is gaining new fans as I speak. So, which is not to say that a child couldn't enjoy Gulliver's Travels. Indeed, I watched this thing at least 1,000 times with my sister in the mid 80s, 40 years after it came out. So I can only speculate about why people didn't, frequent this movie, except maybe that it feels like Disney, but clearly is not. It may be the music and the songs, which get a little overwrought at times. It may even be that next to nothing is revealed about Gulliver as a character, where he comes from, where he's going at the end of the movie. I know why I like it. To me, it's a solid example of what an animated feature, which was the next evolutionary step beyond cartoons at this time, 1939. It's a clear example of what that was supposed to be then, before it became what it is today, which is a literal screenplay that gets sent to an animation studio. It's the movie it's still gag heavy and indulges in all sorts of little act outs and even vignettes, stuff you would see in a short, but then they go back to the main plot. And this is the kind of thing that they would do with features that were in those days that were vehicles for acts that existed in smaller forms, like the Marx Brothers or even Three Stooges movies. And Disney kept it up for as long as Walt was alive, the quality and being able to do this. But this being the only Fleischer feature that I've seen, I haven't seen Mr. Bug Goes to Town or whatever the fuck it's called. But it's mainly because I can't be bothered to watch a feature film with the titular character's name, Mr. Bug.
Well, it's Hoppity.
Mr.
That's
Bug.
what it got renamed
Yes.
because it did so poorly in its initial release. They renamed it.
It's because somebody was like, Mr. Bug. What the fuck kind of name is
Right.
that? I guarantee you that's what it was. Anyway, I'm sorry. It's the only Fleischer feature that I have seen, and it's nice to see an example of a non-Disney cartoon studio dividing everything up nicely like that. Like it has its story, it goes somewhere, but there's still like, indulgencies. I'm not a big fan of the two songs, Faithful and Forever, but to compare to Snow White again, for the most part, none of the songs in that movie push the plot forward. They're just expressions of the characters, what they're feeling at the time, which is fine. You do need that. But the plot is about, in Gulliver's Travels, is about how war between two kingdoms of tiny people breaks out when the kings can't decide which of these two songs, the official songs of the kingdoms respectively, will be played at the wedding. And it's not until Gulliver, whose first name is Lemuel, which stinks but is still a better name than Mr. Bug, but it's not until old Lemmy suggests that both songs be sung together that harmony is restored. And this is another reason to love the movie, because it includes Faithful Forever, which is technically the first mashup. But my point being that the songs actually are part of the plot. It's integral to the movie, and it moves things forward. The best character in it, Gabby, he is. He's the best character in the whole movie. He's Lilliput's town crier, which again is another thing that dates the fuck out of this movie. But he's one of many characters not from Swift's novel, and that's probably why Fleischers did shorts with him later. But I would like to think that the reason they did that is because he's a good character that you can kind of stick in any scenario. You can't stick those fucking dwarfs in any scenario, especially since they only work as a group. So you're not going to get shorts from Snow White. I don't know what kind of point I was trying to make there, but speaking of names, Mr. Bug. Gulliver's Travels I don't know if this is the first time that they used that, because there's been a lot of movies of Gulliver's Travels, and it is based on a novel, but I don't know, because the novel was not called Gulliver's Travels at first. At first it was called, and this is not a joke, it was called Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World in 4 parts by Lemuel Gulliver, first a surgeon and then a captain of several ships.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. I thought Dr.
That is a
Strangelove's
lot.
title was crazy, but
Yeah. It was a literary subgenre back then, the Traveler's Tale. It was the original novel was a satire of these little, character memoirs. The reason it doesn't really make sense though with the movie, and I will concede this, it's called Gulliver's Travels, but the book, that title makes sense because, as it says, it's 4 parts. Lilliput is the first thing that happens to him. And it's this whole like metaphor for humanity, and every little scenario that he's in is some other kind of like metaphor for like the duality of man or some other fucking beard strokey bullshit. But it doesn't really qualify as travels because he just goes to Lilliput and then they send him home. So I don't know if that works, but it's still, I like the movie a lot. There's a few notes that I wanted to pass on here. It did make almost 5 times its budget back, but because modern audiences find it boring, they sometimes misremember things. And I think a lot of people think that Gulliver was Fleischer's only feature. And I think they're confusing the Bug movie, Mr. Bug Goes to Town, because that movie did so fucking poorly.
Yeah.
And that was enough to, I think, that was enough to kill the features. For
that
Fleischer,
movie was actually released after the Fleischers were kicked out, and that's why they didn't. That's something we've been looking at on our show. That they really, the Fleischers were really pushed into doing a lot of stuff they didn't want to do. Like they didn't want to do the Superman cartoons. No.
Oh, really?
That was something Paramount pushed on them.
You can't tell it by looking at them.
But they and then once the movie was ready to come out, I mean, I think Dave Fleischer at least was checked out and left, and Max was on his way out signing the papers to get out, and they just dumped it. And I mean, none of the directors really, none of the supervising animators on that film really had any good things to say about it, or Gulliver for that matter, because I do like Gulliver. I like Mr. Bug more, but I do like Gulliver. But you can definitely see why the audiences would have preferred the Disney films, because they were really working to the point of Snow White. I mean, they wanted to make that film. Versus Gulliver, they didn't. Yeah. They Paramount told them, "You guys got to do a feature." All right, let's do a feature.
So it kind of shows in a weird way. Then I mean, I don't know. Is it because you don't feel like it doesn't feel familiar to you, like when you watch Gulliver, like the Popeye and the Betty Boop shorts. Like, I mean, I'm not one of these elitist cartoon people who's just like, I don't understand people who can't tell the difference between Betty Boop and Mickey Mouse. Like, of course, it's very easy to, get the two confused. So I don't understand it so much when people say it's not Disney enough for me.
Oh, well, that's that's a bullshit argument anyway. No, it really is. I mean, most of the problems with those features is that they're too Disney. I mean, Grim Natwick was brought in onto Gulliver specifically to, copy what he did with Snow White, and you really see it with Glory. Oh. I mean, I was watching it with my old man years ago, and he's like, "Wow, this looks exactly like Snow White." And he's like,
"Yeah." I remember asking about. Well, first of all, I was asking you guys, but Anthony and Austin specifically, about liking your movie versus the actual nostalgia versus the movie, the merit itself. I watched this so much as a kid that and then I stopped at like whatever age, 8 or whatever, and then I watched it again for this because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just misremembering the good times I had versus the movie itself. And I do think it, for the most part, it holds up in my mind, but there's certainly stuff in there that doesn't really. I watched a good print of it. I watched Stanchfield's print of it, which looked as good as I have ever seen it. It's obviously not the first time they did rotoscope, but it's pretty sophisticated, the rotoscope in that movie. Oh, here's a fun fact, by the way. I mentioned the some of the many the movies that were made of Gulliver's Travels. The most recent one was a Jack Black movie. Here's something that's really funny though. There's a scene in that one where there's a fire and he pisses on it to put it out. Glad you said that.
I remember that. That's the only, oddly enough, that's the only part.
Do you know why I'm happy to hear you make that groan?
Why?
because it's a bait and switch, motherfucker. That was in the book. That was actually in the goddamn book. That happened in the book. In the book, travels into several remote nations of the world in 4 parts by Lemuel. Blah, 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 blah. In that book, he actually does piss on a and they erect a statue to him with his dick out.
Oh no!
So I understand why they wanted to make this into a movie. Is all I'm saying.
Fair enough.
Also, if anybody's a Mystery Science Theater fan, they did a movie called The Phantom Planet, and it's essentially the reverse of this, where a guy, these 2 astronauts, they crash land on a planet, and all these tiny people, and then he's a giant, but they ruin it. Of course, they ruin it. But it's so weird to see it in a completely different. I don't know. No one gives a fuck about the rest of the book. Every version that does Gulliver's Travels only does the Lilliput stuff.
Not quite. There is one which I like is the 1960 film, The 3 Worlds of Gulliver. That one he goes Lilliput, and then he goes where he's the tiny one and everyone else is a giant. So
yeah. In the girl's dollhouse in one of them, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's been a long time.
That's
since
in the book.
That one, but I remember liking that one, and in fact, I like Gulliver's Travels. That was a childhood favorite. Same as you, I would watch it constantly.
Yeah.
Well, it was public
I haven't
domain.
seen it.
It was public domain, so everybody could see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So pretty much Austin has no excuse in not seeing it, of course. Just go on YouTube.
It's pretty good, man.
I mean,
although there's something,
and the songs are great too.
It doesn't have a good. What's that?
And the songs are great too. I haven't seen the film in years, and I still remember, oh well, what a rainy day. That the Gabby song in the beginning, and that Forever song. I still remember them.
There's a song in there that I remember being a lot longer. It's the one where in like the middle of the movie, they're having some big dinner, and in his honor, and they're all they pass out all drunk and everything, and so he goes off to the shore with his pipe. So I've been there, and he's sitting on his pipe and he starts smoking and thinking about where he going back home or whatever. I remember that as a kid, and when I watched it for this podcast, it was so weird because it was like 30 seconds. The song was like the first part, the second part, and then it faded away. And I remember going, wow, I'm glad it wasn't any longer than that, because the song was better in my memory than it actually was. But it was weird. Yeah, it's weird watching it again. I remember being very surprised because as a kid, I didn't know what Ted Pierce's voice sounded like. But he does a voice. He's the other king. He's King Bombo.
He's also in Mr. Bug. He's the villain, Mr. Beetle.
Oh my goodness!
So there's a good reason to seek that out.
Was Pinto Colvig in it?
Oh yeah, Pinto Colvig was in it. Yep, he's Gabby.
Yep. Okay, because that's the thing. I haven't seen it for a long time, so I'm forgetting who voiced what. And
he did it. He did Gabby in the shorts too. He played Gabby.
Everyone's favorite shorts series.
It was before before you could do that, with like the Pink Panther. Everyone's like, oh, the Pink Panther, the Clouseau shorts. They started in the Panther shorts. They started in this movie. It's like, yeah, but we did that before with Gulliver. I wish they had done that more with Disney movies. Had characters from the movies, get their own shorts.
Yeah, that would have been interesting, but oh well. So I think that should just about wrap it up. I would say we've gone through, what we've hated, what we've loved. I mean, I certainly had a good time. I hope you guys did too.
Yeah, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good to get things off the chest.
I do think that if we do this again, we all need to we need to check
we saw each other's movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. Austin, I'm making my virtual finger here. So guys, thanks very much for listening to this episode. Let me know if you want to see more of this sort of stuff, and until next time, take care. See ya.
See ya.
Take care.